Thank you, Dr. Mayuri, for your kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to talk on identification of anterior chamber angle landmarks and quantification on ASOCT. We all know and we already heard that assessment of ideocorneal angle can be done by gonioscopy, which is a very good technique and it's a gold standard, but it has limitations. It can be done with the help of UBM and also AS imaging. This can overcome these limitations to certain extent and is useful in clinical practice and for research. So assessment of the ACE structures involved in the pathogenesis of glaucoma can be done by ACE imaging. This provides a definition of ocular tissues comparable to histology, comparable to those obtained with UBM, but it is more useful than UBM because of serial monitoring of the angle is possible with the help of alignment with ocular landmarks. So OCT, we know it's a low coherence interferometry. It's a non-contact cross-sectional 3D images can be got, and it gives us a high resolution images of the anterior segment. Depth of penetration is almost 2 to 7 millimeters of mercury, and it is a rapidly advancing field of ophthalmology. So it helps in evaluation of patients with the help of static and dynamic biometric risk factors for angle closure disease, secondary glaucomas, and also it can assess efficacy of glaucoma interventions like laser peripheral iridotomy or glaucoma surgery. There are various OCT technologies available, but the information available is not interchangeable because they differ in their technology, modeling parameters, dewarping algorithms, and assumptions about. So advantages is we can identify patients at risk for angle closure. We have a, as compared to gonioscopy, we can have non-contact. It can be done with any lighting conditions. It can be performed by a technician and interpreted by physician. Angle assessed with physiologic light conditions is helpful because with scans can be taken with lights on and off. So it mimics the physiologic and angle of any patient. So it is also helpful in patients understanding. If you show this diagram to a patient and show how his eye is behaving, they understand it immediately. So coming to angle structures, we know this diagrammatic representation, how to identify a scleral spur and other factors. So we know, we have seen that how a corneal wedge has to be identified and how it corresponds with gonioscopy diagrams. Now let's see how we can identify structures on ASOCT. So this is a Schwalbe's line here, and this is the scleral spur. We will see in detail now. So scleral spur is defined as an inward protrusion of the sclera where a change in the curvature of the corneal scleral junction is there at the junction of trabecular meshwork and the ciliary body. So this is scleral spur. Schwalbe's line is defined as a posterior limbal zone bordering the cornea where Descemet's membrane terminates, and this can be identified on ASOCT, and you can definitely see where the Schwalbe's line is there. Also, the distance, that is the length of the trabecular meshwork, is between from Schwalbe's line to the scleral spur. So Schlemm's canal can be identified on this, and this is an area, a loosened curvilinear area from SS to the anterior tip of the trabecular meshwork. The most important, one more finding here we can have is the bell, that is the band of extracanalicular limbal lamina, which can be seen between the Schlemm's canal and the trabecular meshwork, and this is seen as luminescent area. And here it was previously identified as TM shadow, and people didn't know what is the significance, but now it has been seen that it is spatially, it has a better visibility and seen in open angles as compared to closed angle. So this is how we can identify the Schwalbe's line. This is wedge we know of how we look on gonioscopy. This is the scleral spur, and this is the angle. We know that it is a narrow opening over there. Another patient, Schwalbe's line here. This is the wedge, scleral spur, and this is the angle, and we know it is open qualitatively. So, but how do we quantify this? So there are certain ocular biometrics which is quantifiable by ASOCT as predictors of primary angle closure disease. These can be static risk factors like shallow anterior chamber, increased iris volume, lens vault, anterior chamber depth, angle opening distance, and TISA. There can be dynamic risk factors, which are going to see in detail. So what is lens vault? This is a novel parameter, and this is a perpendicular distance between the anterior pole of the lens and an imaginary horizontal line joining the two scleral spurs. So this is independently associated with angle closure, and larger values of LV suggest increased crowding, and the upper quartile has a 48 times higher risk of angle closure than a lower quartile in a statistical graph. So anterior chamber depth, we all know this is the posterior corneal surface to anterior lens curvature distance, and anterior chamber width again is a novel risk indicator for angle closure, and this is the distance between the two scleral spurs. The next is the anterior vault. So anterior vault is the addition of anterior chamber depth plus lens vault, but the relative lens vault is more important because this is lens vault divided by the anterior vault. So we know as the lens thickness goes up, lens vault values will increase, and this will increase the relative lens values, lens vault. So PSCGs have larger relative lens vault as compared to normalize, and this is a better indicator than LV. So this is lens vault. Static risk factors include iris area. This is the cross-sectional area of the iris throughout the length. Iris thickness, this is a thickness where there is a maximum curvature of the maximum thickness of the iris. And this is iris curvature from the perpendicular line joining the two surfaces or the two ends of the iris. So next is angle opening distance. It in millimeters. So this is a point between scleral from the anterior chamber to the opposing iris, and angle recess area. This is also ARA 500 and 750. It is bounded by the anterior iris surface and the inferior inner corneoscleral wall. Next is TISA. This is the trapezoidal area 500 or 750, and it is bounded by the AOD 500 or 750. The anterior iris surface, the inner corneoscleral wall, and a perpendicular distance between the scleral spur and the opposing iris. So these are also important. These factors, statistical factors, are associated with the refractive errors, and they have found lower values in hyperometropia of all, that is AOD 500, 750, and TISA 500 and TISA 750. So quantitative associated studies reveal significant anatomical variation along the 360 span of an angle, and generally angles are more narrow superiorly and inferiorly, and they are open temporally and nasally. So these anatomic variations may affect the aqueous outflow, especially in angle closure eyes. So we have to have a multi-image approach of anterior angle landmarks and anatomy also, instead of a single TN cross-sectional image. So for this, there is another index, another quantifiable factor, which is a iridotrabecular contact, that is ITC. So presence and detection of ITC is very important because it is the hallmark in eyes with angle closure glaucoma. It is vital in deciding about laser iridotomy. Indentation darkroom gonioscopy is a gold standard to detect oppositional closure, but it is subject to inter-observer variability also. And even light during the gonioscopy may induce pupillary constriction and may open narrow angles, and it can be missed. So ITC index is the extent of angle closure across 360-degree circumference. So this red circle represents the scleral spur, and green line is the end point of ITC, which can differ in one particular patient like this. It can be very anterior also, and it can be a totally normal. So this will give us an blue area, which is area of ITC. And again, this will give us an ITC index in percent. So this is helpful wherever we do some intervention, whether the ITC index is different or not. So this is after PI, that there is a change in ITC index from almost 67% to 35%. And we also can note that the blue area has definitely decreased from the first and the second image. So, but these statistical factors, which are, yes, I'll take 1 minute more. So there are multiple areas. So, but it has been shown that they are not very accurate. So coming to dynamic risk factors, which we know that there is a structural change with iris dilatation, and occludable angles also have post dilatation, less reduction in iris volume. So this is a study. So I'll just show 1 or 2 slides, photopic and scotopic pupil. So this is again photopic, scotopic. There is a classification based on ASOCT. So these are the mechanisms of PSCG. Different 4 mechanisms have been identified. A pupillary block here, a plateau iris, thick peripheral iris, and lens vault. So this is a PSC and post-PIT opens up. This is again a PSC, pre-dilatation and post-dilatation. This is pre-iridoplasty and post-iridoplasty. This is convex iris in pigmentary glaucoma, chronic angle closure, how it looks like because of the peripheral anterior synecdoche. This is occlusio papillae. This is occlusio papillae post-uveitic, which opens up, and this is angle dysgenesis. So thank you for your patient hearing. So this is not to replace conventional gonioscopy, but to supplement angle evaluation. Major advantages are it is non-contact, repeatability and reproducibility there, and we can have quantitative and qualitative information, may help in screening programs for PSCG and improve our understanding of surgery. And it is an invaluable tool for ophthalmic research. Thank you for your attention.